I am a big fan of Maggie Hartley. I love her foster care memoirs. I've read everything she's written, and I was really thrilled to see that there was a new book out called The Lost Boy. I didn't know what it was about. I never really look into what these are about. I prefer to go in open because sometimes there's a bit of suspense building up to what the actual problem is. And I will say that in this case, I'd say the first third of the book doesn't reveal what the actual issue is, so there is some building up. And then maybe after the first third, it reveals it. So here I will kind of talk a bit about the book without saying what it is, but then I will mention what it is because there are a few things I want to discuss. So if you haven't read this, I would advise reading it first if you plan to, because I don't want to spoil anything. The only thing that's wrong with this book is the length, and I'm not the only person who thinks that. I had a look on Amazon's reviews when I bought it, after I'd read it, and a lot of people are saying, yeah, it's good, it's interesting, but it's not long, and it isn't long. I don't know how many Kindle pages it actually is, but it took me less than an hour to read it. So it's not an in-depth read, and it's weird because the subject matter, which I will explain in a little bit, is, first of all, very prevalent just now. It's something that is a very hot topic, if you like. And second of all, it's not something that can be really covered in an hour. Now, I don't know if just the true story for this was very basic. You know, if there wasn't actually anything else that could have been written, which is a good thing, because that means that it wouldn't have been overly traumatic for the individual going through it, which will make sense when I say what it is. And obviously that's a fantastic thing if that's the case. If it was a very straightforward placement, brilliant. But I get the impression that it wasn't. And I feel like there are things that could have been covered. And I don't know if this was just rushed out, if there was a deadline, if it was just released as a short story. Because it is short, it hasn't been released in paperback, as far as I'm aware. Whereas the majority of Hartley's books are also available in paperback. So I'm going to say what it is about, because it will make more sense then. So the placement comes to Maggie after a huge family bust-up. Carl is a teenager. He's 16, or maybe just nearly 16, and he has a big argument with his father, and Carl obviously goes to stay with Maggie, and to begin with, Carl won't say what's going on, neither will his father, and then it's revealed that he's actually, he's not transgender yet, but he's going through a lot of depression and emotional grief because he just does not feel comfortable being the boy that he's been for 16 years, and he explained this to his father. His father, as one might understand, kind of lost it a bit. He overreacted. And the book is all about Carl coming to terms with transitioning or considering transitioning full-time into a girl. And that's obviously a very strong topic at the moment. It's something that a lot of people are campaigning for rights and, better treatment. And this book could have gone into so much detail. We do get a lack review. We do, Carl gets to go to therapy. So it's probably informative if you are maybe a parent of a child going through this, or if you're fostering somebody who's going through this, or even if you're going through it yourself. It does kind of explain what the process is. The child goes to therapy. They're encouraged to live as the opposite gender for about 2 years before they even consider medical intervention. And that's really interesting because it shows kind of, what the process is if somebody, when they initially say, I feel like I'm in the wrong body. It's really interesting to know what the process is. It's also reassuring to know that, there's no medical intervention instantly, particularly with children. I think that's a really important thing to learn. And, Carl, do I spoil this or do I not? No, I won't. But Carl changes his name, and I will just say, best name ever. I assume it's been changed to hide the identity of the individual, but fantastic choice. But, he goes to school when he becomes she, and she goes to school, and there's a little bit of mention of bullying, but I would have liked to have known more about how other children reacted, about how she found fitting in, what happens to her friendship groups. We get the impression that Carl didn't have that many friends. How does this impact on his or her new self? There's so much that could have been covered, so many emotional aspects. and none of it was really looked into. And again, as I said, maybe for her it was a lot more plain sailing than anybody had anticipated. Maybe there wasn't that much to actually cover. And if that's the case, that's fantastic. You know, that's brilliant. But I get the impression it was a lot more challenging than that. And I don't know how long ago this was, but an update would have been really great. You know, a lot of these foster care memoirs end by saying such and such went on to live with such and, you know, they're happy now or whatever. Maybe this was only a couple of months before it was written, I don't know. But certainly an update would have been nice if possible, because I'd like to know how she got on with it, what the outcome was and how it progressed, but that's not included. None of that is there. And maybe that information isn't available. But again, it just feels like it's been rushed. And I don't know if that was a deadline issue. I don't know if the publisher said, look, you need to get something out now because it's been X number of months. But I enjoyed what I read, and that's the problem. I enjoyed what I read. There wasn't enough of it. I wanted to read more. So the book itself, very good, very interesting. It's just unfortunate that it's, without question, not long enough. However, I would recommend it. If you are not familiar with foster care memoirs, I would recommend it, but I'd say maybe choose a full-length novel first, full-length memoir first, so you can kind of understand a lot more about fostering. And I recommend any of Maggie Hartley's books, as well as Kathy Glass, Casey Watson and Rosie Lewis. Absolutely love all of them. And The Lost Boy was good. It's a short story. It was only $1.99. I should have really realised that it wouldn't have been a full-length book. But I liked it. It was good. It missed out a lot that could have been there. But again, maybe the information wasn't available. Worth reading. Just bear in mind that it's not that in-depth.